Hello again, nerds. Welcome back to the news. I, as always, am Generally Nerdy, and we're going to be unpacking a loaded week across the entire nerddom. So here are kind of the broad strokes. Honestly, I've been kind of digging through a million different headlines this week. We covering everything as usual, from blistering new music updates, gaming updates, seismic shifts in the comic book world, some must-see TV developments, blockbuster movie news, and of course, all of those oh-so-juicy rumors percolating through the grapevine. It is a lot to cover, but trust me, you're going to want to stick around for the whole thing this week because the rumor mill is exceptionally juicy. It feels particularly significant with some major currents running through multiple sections of the video this week. We're talking about some truly legendary names making massive, unprecedented moves. I think resurrections, career shifts, surprising collaborations that you probably, hopefully, didn't see coming. Huge casting announcements with potential shakeups that could fundamentally alter some of your favorite characters and franchises moving forward. We have whispers turning into shouts and also some official confirmations therein about the future direction of massive entertainment universes and the key players that are steering the ship there. Those are just the broad strokes, if you will. The themes echoing throughout the entire week in nerddom this week. The specific details are also super good, I promise. Whether you're here for the riffs, the pixels, the panels, the screen time, or the speculation, I've probably got something for you. So grab your dubby. I've got mine right here. Grab your dubby and let's dive in, shall we? This week in music, things have kind of been popping off. There's like very little exaggeration to that. So some of the bigger stories here we have first is Brent Hinds is absolutely not letting moss grow on under his feet, rather, post Mastodon. Second up in the big stuff is Swedish melodic death thrash, whatever the hell you want to call them, legends The Haunted have returned in kind of a major way. And third, get your neck ready, Canada, because Korn and Gojira have announced tour dates. We're going to talk about that and quite a bit more. There's some really heavy lifting going on here, so let's talk music. All right, we have follow-ups and corrections. Well, just follow-ups for music, but follow-ups nonetheless. Brent Hinds is our one big follow-up this week. He's definitely hitting the ground running as he is no longer part of the beast that is known as Mastodon. He just played last week, since we last spoke anyway, just played his first show rather, post Mastodon with his other once side project band called Fiend Without a Face. Now he's promoting a new show in the Atlanta area that is going to feature all three of his current projects: Fiend Without a Face, West End Motel, and Dirty B and the Boys. It's going to be at the Garden Club at Wild Haven West in Atlanta on April 18th is when the show is happening. So Hinds is apparently really trying to do music still, just wasn't down for the Mastodon. Okay, interesting. Let's move on. We have new music announced this week, new albums coming out. First up is The Haunted, announced their first record in 8 years. The name of the album is Songs of Last Resorts, due May 30th on Century Media. First single is out now, called Warhead. We will actually be doing the That Just Happened show this week, so we will be talking about that. We have a lot of ground to cover on That Just Happened because it never happened last week. So there's that. And then also new music this week announced is Garbage announced a new album. Let All That We Imagine Be the Light is the name of the record. It is their 8th studio album. No proper release date has been made known just yet, but as soon as it is, we'll be talking about it. That's kind of the big noteworthy new announcements for music. So let's move into tours and festivals, shall we? First one is the big one, and that is Korn Canadian tour with Gojira. Opening the bill is going to be the band Loathe. Was unable to find a link to this, so I'm sure if you just go to Korn's website, it's not going to be a big deal, or Gojira or Loathe's website, I'm sure they're also going to have links there. But the tour kicks off September 17th, runs through October 1st, again up in the Great White North, known as Canada. Speaking of Garbage, they are going on tour, so presumably the record will be out relatively soon. September 3rd is when the Happy Endings tour starts. It will start in Orlando, Florida, runs through November 2nd in Phoenix, Arizona. Support from the band Starcrawler, whom I've never heard of, so that should be interesting. Tickets go on sale April 4th. For this tour. Moving along, we have one other real big touring announcement, and that is Chevelle. Support from Asking Alexandria and Dead Poets Society. Chevelle Tour will be kicking off August 7th in San Antonio, Texas, runs through October 2nd in Airway Heights, Washington. I thought that was the venue when I first read this announcement. Pre-sale tickets are on sale now. Standard tickets, so everyone else's tickets, will go up on the 28th. Link is down in the description for that, as well as for the Garbage Tour. Now that's what we got for tours and festivals. Let's talk about regular ass news. So one thing before we get into regular ass news, I guess we probably could have put this into the new music section, but I just remembered, and it's not in the notes because I couldn't find like an actual news piece on this, but AFI have announced that they are working on their next record currently, which could be a good thing. I mean, they've done some good tracks over the course of the last 3 or 4 records, but nothing like, I don't know that I would necessarily call the last 3 or 4 records anything of my favorite that they've done. I don't know. Burials was actually fairly legitimate. So either way, working on a new record. I can't substantiate that outside of, I think they put the announcement up on their Instagram. Maybe it was their Facebook. Either way, they're working on a new record. That should have gotten a new music, but whatever. Let's talk about the rest of the regular ass news. First up is Kevin Smith versus Gwar. Kind of. So Gwar have a documentary coming out, I think actually, called This Is Gwar. There's going to be a special screening event at the Smod Castle Cinemas, which is the name of the double theater that Kevin Smith owns in New Jersey. They are selling tickets now. You can find a link down in the description. It is going to be, again, a special showing of the Gwar documentary that kind of goes through the entire history of the band. And also, there's going to be a Q&A that Smith is going to host with the band after the airing of the movie. So that'll be pretty cool. You can get tickets are about $25 unless you want to do photo ops afterwards as well, which that's going to be $100. You get a photo op with Smith and Gwar together. Pretty awesome. That's all we got though. Again, link in the description. Let's move on. From there, we have a really funny piece. Like, I'm kind of legitimately interested, but also it makes me chuckle every time I see anything covering this. But Matty Matheson, if you don't know who that is, Matty Matheson, if you watched The Bear, he was Fack. If you are an internet food lover, then you know him as Matty Matheson. He's a chef. He has a YouTube channel that's fairly successful. He's done a number of things. He's a chef consultant also on The Bear. He did the Last Meals podcast with Mythical Chef Josh over on the Mythical Kitchen channel. He's kind of, I mean, again, if you're millennial and younger and you're into food, then you know Matty Matheson. If you're not and you watch The Bear, then you know Matty Matheson. So that dude, the goofy dude with all the tattoos, has started a new band. If you have seen any of his interviews recently, then you know that he was into the music scene as he was kind of in his early days in being a cook as well. And that kind of took a backseat to the chefdom, as it does. And now he's to a point in his career where he wants to get back into it, apparently. The name of the band is Pigpen. It is also featuring one of the guitarists from Alexis on Fire, Wade McNeil. They have a show booked for March 25th. You can find a link down in the description that will take you to a little bit more details if you're interested in trying to check that out. If you also go check out the Instagram for the band or for Maddie Matheson, you'll see it referred to as a few old friends got together to make some music. It's kind of, I mean, it's a little bit of a paraphrase, but that's pretty close to what they actually said about it. And like, what better way to make music than just getting together with old buddies? There is a reference to the fact that there is some sort of album that has been recorded with this band, though it does say that it was done a decade ago over the course of 2 days, now that Maddie has a little bit more money. And also, what was his name? Wade McNeil also has a little bit more money than they did a decade ago. I would imagine if they're going to put any sort of recordings out there into the ether, they're probably going to re-record said record or new material or something along those lines, but those details have not been made known to anybody yet. Just this show that they're playing on March 25th. So go check it out. It's going to be kind of awesome, I bet. And then we have a piece about a new record label, Imprint, I think. No, this is legit label. I apologize. So the name of the new record label is White Cobra Records. Chimera are the ones that are in charge of this new label. This is their record label to celebrate starting this new venture in their lives. They have they're going to rather reissue the first release, their self-titled album from 2005. It is going to include a handful of new bonus tracks, one of which being a cover. And the pre-orders are live now. The link in the description will take you to where you can go pre-order this. I think White Cobra Records, the website actually is the best place to do that, which is not what the link is. The link takes you to the article that I found that announced this. Either way, go do that, because pre-orders are live now and they will stay open for the next month. So pretty solid. That's great. That is what we have for regular ass news, though. Let's talk about our music suggestion this week, and we're staying with Chimera. I really like Chimera. However, my favorite Chimera record is actually The Impossibility of Reason, released in 2003, May 13th of 2003. This is just kind of like the peak of everything. Most of the super popular tracks, I'm totally blanking on any of them right now because I didn't include them into the notes for some reason. I really love this record, though. Just the incredible brutality, moving away from the nu metal enough to still kind of have those elements, but also be lumped into the likes of Lamb of God. When I saw them supporting this record, it was with the likes of Lamb of God. Pretty sure it was them on tour with Lamb of God at one point. Either way, fantastic standout record. Chimera, I really hope they put out something new soon. Either way, this is kind of the peak of their sound, and that is your suggestion for the week. All right, quick pause. You know, we totally get immersed in the news and we get immersed into all of the nerdy wonderfulness, completely lost in the sauce, if you will. But that passion and clarity sometimes needs a little bit of a boost, and which brings us to our super awesome channel partner, Dubby. Dubby.gg is the website. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, oh my God, another energy drink? Yes, but it is a little bit different. Personally, as somebody who appreciates intensity, if you will, whether it's blast beats from Opeth or the newest metalcore record that I just can't shut up about, or the climax of some fantasy epic novel, like intensity is something I'm not afraid of, and certainly I'm not ashamed of. Sorry, lyrics. I also appreciate sustained intensity, not just a quick spike followed by a long nap, which again is what Dubby does. They deliver exactly that. Smooth energy to enhance your focus, zero sugar so you don't have a sugar crash once it wears off. And it's perfect for those long sessions where you're trying to absorb everything, be it just binge watching, deep diving into lore, you get lost down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, perfecting your KD ratio, just kind of powering through, reading a massive Tolkien book or whatever new. As soon as Rothfuss drops his next one, we're probably going to be mainlining a little bit of Dubby in order to get through the book as quickly as possible, right? The great thing about mainlining the Dubby is, unlike other energy drink mixes, this doesn't taste like chemical nonsense. This is legitimately tasty flavors. Recently, the two flavors that I keep bouncing back and forth are the Push and Punch and the Calio Cream. They just redesigned Push and Punch as a new flavor in there, so I'm super excited to try that again. But they also have a brand new Tiger's Blood flavor that I haven't tried yet. So I'm debating whether or not I just re-up on the one I know I already like, or try something crazy and new. Either way, I'm super stoked for it. So basically, Dubby is fuel for the nerddom, helping you stay locked in and enjoying what you love for longer without feeling like garbage afterwards. Think of it as like a perfect background track for your brain. Keeps tempo without being overly distracting. So go ahead, give them a look over at that's dubby.gg. That is the website. Slap my code Generally Nerdy into the bar at checkout, the little discount code bar thing, and I will get you 10% off, which means you get a little bit of a you get a little bit of a discount on the thing you're going to buy anyway. You're going to be drinking caffeine, right? Dubby gets to sell product and I get a little bit of a kickback. So again, win, win, win. Everybody is in on this. It's a good time. Help support the channel, fuel your overnight needs, fuel your nerdy needs, really, and go check out dubby.gg. Thank you again to Dubby for being a channel partner, and now let's get back to the video. In gaming and tech this week, which is where we find ourselves now, there's some seriously interesting stuff percolating under the surface. Some of it seems to be designed to cause a little bit of chaos, and we're going to talk about that. First, in the broad strokes, that little bit of chaos might be Pal World. They've just announced some updates that are kind of poking the bear of Nintendo. Yeah, a little pointed. Anyway, that's one of the big ones. Next is, out of nowhere, we got a trailer for an old revival. This game is 20-something years old at this point, and it just got a new iteration. We're going to talk about that. And we have a little bit of taste of what could have been. We have details on a failed Warner Brothers game from Monolith Studios, which was recently shuttered, that was going to be known as WB Racers. So that's just three of the big things going on. There's a lot more making waves in gaming and tech. So let's do the thing. Follow-ups, corrections, gaming and tech. We have a follow-up, and this is probably our biggest story in the section. It's maybe. Well, I'll let you decide. Either way, Pal World is our follow-up because we've been keeping tabs on it as it's been going. This one isn't necessarily dealing with the lawsuit directly between Nintendo and the developers of Pal World for copyright infringement for a lot of Pokemon stuff and so on and so forth. This is just new features inside of the Pal World ecosystem that are probably going to exacerbate their issues with Nintendo, legitimately. So Pal World have released, where is it? The photo mode and crossplay. So photo mode is the big one here. Crossplay, I'm sure it is kind of irrelevant to Nintendo because they're only available on the one platform. However, photo mode seems to be a little bit encroachment on previous iterations of other Pokemon games. So I really feel like they're kind of poking the bear with this one. But yeah, if you are a Pal World player, then those new features should be available to you currently. It was the most recent update for the game. That is the one follow-up that we have. No corrections. Let's talk now about trailers. We do have a trailer, and this one is a bit of a surprise because nobody thought that Painkiller was going to get revived. Why would you? It was a pretty solid Xbox game back in the day, and now it was like 21 years after the original game has been released, we now have a remake of said original game that is cross-platform. It is on Xbox and PlayStation and Steam. It looks, by the looks of the trailer, it feels a bit more like Doom than it did previously. Probably due to the success of the Doom franchise in modern gaming. Over the course of the last 8 years, Doom has just kind of gone awesome. Even more so than, when it originated to a certain degree, genre as a whole. But there is no specific release date for this Painkiller remake, only sometime this fall. So 2025 in the fall. That's all we got. That is the only trailer we have this week, so let's talk now about some regular ass news. And again, this is probably our other biggest news piece in this section, and that is what could have been from Monolith Studios, WB Racers. was apparently a project that was being worked on by Monolith Studios. And it is worth noting because, you know, this was going to be a Mario Kart kind of callback, much like Multiverses was a Smash Brothers kind of ripoff, or the idea steal. I don't even, like, there's no way to say that nicely, I think. But this was going to be with Warner Brothers IPs, and it's worth noting, I was going to say this a minute ago, sorry, worth noting that John Tobias, the co-creator of Mortal Kombat, was employed by Monolith Studios until they got shuttered just a few weeks ago. So Warner Brothers IPs, John Tobias is employed. We were going to get some Mortal Kombat kart. I'm telling you right now. We know very little. There has been some information that's come out about it. Kind of basically everything I just gave you. The name were WB Racers. We also know that they were going to try and release it sometime around the early days of the COVID pandemic, but the pandemic kind of killed it. And then there was some animosity between Monolith and the publisher, or the developer rather, that created Multiverses, because they were a similar idea in that they're going to take IPs from across the Warner Brothers catalog and put them into a game together. It's just the Multiverses was a fighting game and WB Racers is a race car game. So I mean, obvious differences aside, they were a similar concept. And the Multiverses, for whatever reason, is the one that got the green light to go forward. And then they kind of put the WB Racers on the back burner, apparently to see how well Multiverses does, which is kind of an illogical statement, because if we have a fighting game, the fighting game's success is going to have very little to do with the kart game. So the kart game's success is not directly tied, even though it seems like that's the way that the upper-ups at Sony thought it was going to happen. So yeah, it's dead in the water at this point, sadly enough. But that is what we have for regular ass news this week, which brings us to our suggestion. Suggestion this week is a little bit unusual as far as the suggestions go, and that is Gemini 2.0. So the experimental version. So on screen, if you're watching and not listening, if you're listening, you're gonna have to go check out the Rumble or the YouTube page. But on screen, you're seeing right now, I'll include a link in the description to get you there. But the Gemini 2.0 experimental is a lot of fun to play with, and it's absolutely free. If you've never touched an AI before, you don't know how to get into it, like, there's a lot of stuff where they're kind of holding your hand with how to interact with this AI. And again, it's 100% free. You have to select off to the side which model you want. There are two models that are totally worth playing with. Both of them are free: 2.0 experimental and 2.5 experimental. The difference being 2.5 will only give you a text result. 2.0 is multimodal, meaning it can give you, technically it could give you audio, though I haven't played with anything that generates audio. I've really just played with the generation of text responses and image responses. The image generator in this Gemini is local to this AI. It is not borrowed from another AI that Google owns. They're doing this inside this one AI. So it's really interesting, and the versatility for this is incredibly broad, and also kind of given Grok over on X a run for its money. So without gushing too much, follow the link in the description, check out how to interact with an AI, go have a little bit of fun with a totally free, insanely powerful AI, Gemini 2.0 and 2.5 experimental. That is your suggestion for the week. Comic books and books, we have some legends colliding in a very unexpected way. We have a deep cut that is evolving. There's a lot here. As again, legends colliding. George A. Romero and John Carpenter are collaborating somehow on a new comic book, a new graphic novel, if you will. We have the X-Men. There's a deep cut villain that is not only just back, but also evolving into something else. And we have, from a galaxy far, far away, Jedi Master Fisto, I think is how you're supposed to say his name, is returning for a new horror story from Dark Horse. We've got some really interesting stuff in comic books this week. Let's get into the details, and then quite a bit more, actually. No trailers, no follow-ups, none of that stuff. Just regular ass news here in Comic Books and Books this week. So let's start off with the amusement park. What is the amusement park? The amusement park is a new graphic novel that is based on a George A. Romero movie that was lost to time. This movie was never actually made, though there is a lot about it that does still exist, which is then being turned into a graphic novel over at, what was the name of the company? Storm King Comics is the ones doing it. John Carpenter is the one that is taking all of the information that we have about the amusement park and compiling it into a story, and then Jeff Whitehead is the one converting that story into the comic book script, it would seem. Some combination between Carpenter and Whitehead are turning this into a script. And then we have art from Ryan Carr. So just kind of an awesome George A. Romero movie that was lost to time is now getting a comic book adaptation. That in and of itself is pretty freaking awesome. And then you throw in John Carpenter, like, yes, please, and thank you. Give me more. That, again, June 10th. You can follow the link in the description if you want a little bit more information. Otherwise, let's move on. Next, we have Weapon Exile. So the current Weapon X-Men story, the book that has been going on, we're 2 issues deep into it. We talked about it when it was originally announced months ago. It is now out on shelves, issues 1 and 2. Issue 2 is doing something very interesting in that it is showing us that, what is his name? Baron Wolfgang von Strucker is kind of a deep cut villain for the X-Men. He's resurfacing, but in a very unique way. He's resurfacing because he has created these Wolverines of Mass Destruction, or WMDs, if you will, that he has uploaded his consciousness into. So in issue 2, we meet the WMDs. We meet there's another name for them, but I just thought WMDs was too good to not use that as their primary reference. And then by issue 3, a little bit of a spoiler alert, I guess, all but one of those Wolverines of Mass Destruction are going to be destroyed, it would seem, and the one remaining is going to start evolving into something new. I'm always down for a specific villain for a hero, right? And Wolverine being one of the favorites from the X-Men. Like, if you can get me more Wolverine-themed villains, because Sabretooth, it works from time to time, but you can't always have Sabretooth. You can't always have Omega Red. I would love more Omega Red because I feel like he's super underutilized, but Von Strucker, even more so underutilized. And now that we've created Weapon Exile, that's what the singular WMD that is left is going to be referred to as, is Weapon Exile. What a badass name, by the way. But either way, super stoked to see what they can do for Wolverine and the X-Men. Again, in April is when issue 3 is going to be on shelves, and that is when we get the full proper introduction to Weapon Exile. So pick that one up, or just, go thumb through it at your local comic book shop. But either way, it's going to be worth a read. And then our final piece of news for Comic Books and Books is a Star Wars piece, and it has to do with Star Wars hyperspace stories. Sorry, first day, new lips. Star Wars hyperspace stories, The Tides of Terror. This is a new horror book that is coming out on Dark Horse that features, what is his name? Kit Fisto? He's returning. You'll recognize him. He was in the prequel trilogy. He usually doesn't have a whole lot to do when he's on screen and stuff like this. He was the one in one of the animated series that lit his lightsaber under the water, which was pretty noteworthy because that's the first time we've ever seen such things happen. So yeah, this is a dude that's been around for a while. He is a Jedi master, and he's now being brought back into the fold in this new comic book. And it's a horror story. I feel like this is something that we need to, the publishers, that's the word I was looking for. The more publishers should really start to branch out. Yes, you have this IP, you have this superhero story, or this Star Wars story, or X thing that is usually this action adventure kind of story. and let's steer into other genres with this stuff. Nothing exceptionally boring necessarily. I mean, there is a lot to be said about potential philosophical stories, about pondering the existence and stuff like that. But horror, I think, is a reasonable sidestep. You're not really asking much more of your reader aside from, do you want to be a little scared? So I think that's a pretty awesome little sidestep to take in the Star Wars universe. I'm very intrigued by this one. Again, the name of the book is Star Wars Hyperspace Stories, Tides of Terror. It is going to be on shelves. I do not have a date for when it is supposed to hit shelves. It is going to be a 4-issue mini, though, from Dark Horse, so it will be something that we can collect in trade paperback sometime soon. So that's pretty awesome. That's what we got. Let's talk suggestions in comic books and books. The suggestion this week is kind of gearing up for The Last of Us, because we're getting ready for season 2 of The Last of Us, kind of where the zombie genre kind of peaks with literature. One of my favorite books is the World War Z and Oral History of the Zombie War by Max Brooks. Yes, Max Brooks is Mel Brooks' son. This, though, is not a comedy. This is a book that legitimately has like elements of dread. Like, it's fairly light as far as horror goes, but still, there are definitely sections of this book where you're kind of biting your nails, waiting in anticipation for what the hell's about to happen, because Max just does a pretty decent job of setting this up. It is nothing like the movie that we got starring Brad Pitt. This is a completely different situation. Really, the only thing that is similar between this book and the movie, there are a couple of references that they say kind of offhand in the movie, and the title. Other than that, they're completely different things. So if you didn't like the movie because X, Y, and Z reason, probably not going to be an issue with the book. The book, though, fairly short read, again, 400 pages or less, and absolutely worth your time. Go check out the World War Z and Oral History of the Zombie War by Max Brooks. That's your suggestion for the week. Channel surfing on over to TV and streaming. There's a couple of things, not quite the biggest section that we've ever had for TV streaming, but it's still pretty hefty. First, praise Kier. We have a new announcement for another season for a giant, massive series that's going on right now. We officially have word that season 3 is happening. We have huge news for horror fans because the Jason Voorhees prequel show on Peacock is now casting. We also have a little bit of an update for Andor season 2, and by a little bit I mean we know the release date, we got another trailer, there's a whole lot of stuff going on there. There's really some heavy hitters this week in TV streaming, even though it is a little bit smaller, so either way, let's check it out. TV streaming is our biggest section this week, so follow-ups and corrections is kind of the meat and potatoes of it. We're going to start things off with the Smallville animated series. We talked about this when it was originally just an idea that Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum had, that they were kind of pitching to the producers at WB, the original producers of Smallville even, because one of them is still part of the project. I'm getting ahead of myself. It is not happening, at least not yet. It is still on the table. It's just been moved really far back on the table because since we talked about this last, James, well, no, there have been a couple of minor updates since then, but since it was originally announced as actually being a thing that they were going forward with, James Gunn and Peter Safran, wow, I almost forgot his name, have taken over that portion of Warner Brothers. So what with the regime change, things have gotten kind of pushed around. So producer Alfred Goh, who is the co-creator and producer on the live action show, he appeared on the Talkville podcast with Rosenbaum and, oh good lord, I just said his name, Tom Welling. Woohoo! Thank you, notes. With Rosenbaum and Welling, and they were talking about the future for the animated show. It is still a thing that is still potentially going to happen. He was very clear in that right now it's just change things, and so because they were pre-regime change, they kind of got pushed off to the side. It sounds as though I don't know this explicitly because he didn't say explicitly, but it sounds as though Alfred Goh has spoken with James Gunn about the potential for this to happen, and he kind of just got brushed off, is the impression that I get from this interview. So it will hopefully happen in the future, but there is no active production on this anytime soon. So that's our update there. Next up is a real quick one. Severance. Season 3 officially happening, as if that was actually a question that needed to be asked. So yes, we know that's happening. And then we have Stewart fails to save the universe. We've talked, this is the first time we've used the title for the show, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why we didn't talk about it when they gave it a title, though we might have, so don't hold me to that. But this is the spin-off from The Big Bang Theory. So Stewart, as played by, where is his name? Kevin Sussman, is going to be the same actor who played Stewart. We also have John Ross Bowie, who was Barry Kripke. We have Lauren Kapkus, who played Denise, and Brian Posehn, who, I mean, you got to know who Brian Posehn is, but in the show, he is Bert Kibler. We're now into the writing stage on this production. However, something super interesting here is we do not have the go-ahead from, Max, for this to continue. Right now, it is Chuck Lorre and a couple of the other producers who are in charge of The Big Bang Theory are funding it themselves until they can get the go-ahead from Max to actually create this show. There are two episode scripts that exist. They've done table reads for it, but it's still not officially happening yet. I think that is incredibly interesting. Like, Chuck Lorre just really has a lot of faith in this show. So I am a bit of a fan of The Big Bang Theory. I don't think it's a bad thing that the nerds are the punchline. The nerds are also the ones doing the setup. The nerds are also the focus of the damn show. Yes, I realize there are some other issues that we're not going to get into. We've actually talked about ad nauseum on the channel at least once or twice. But yeah, I'm still a fan. I don't care what you say. I think Big Bang Theory is hilarious. And I'm very excited to see what the spin-off series is going to bring us. And then our other big piece of follow-up news has to do with the Crystal Lake series. So this is the prequel Friday the 13th. Not Friday the 13th. Yeah, Friday the 13th. My brain just farted. So prequel Friday the 13th series. It's going to be over on Peacock. We got casting announcement. This isn't rumor, this is confirmed. Linda Cardellini has been cast as Pamela Voorhees, aka Mrs. Voorhees, aka Jason's freaking mom. Linda Cardellini. I remember when I was in like 7th grade, I had a little bit of a crush on Linda Cardellini, not gonna lie. So that's honestly pretty great. I'm super excited to see what the hell comes of that. That though is all we have since it is just a follow-up. So let's move right along into some trailers. We do have 2 trailers this week. First up is the Andor trailer, season 2 final trailer. April 22nd is when we're going to be seeing Andor. Let's do more Star Wars like this, please. This trailer is doing all of the right things. We got a little bit of tease because this is where it has to tie into Rogue One. And we know where it's going, but we're still excited to watch the journey there. Like, that is what we need out of our Star Wars. Absolutely freaking awesome. Let's move on. Our other trailer this week is Alien Earth, the new FX series. Still no proper release date for this one, just sometime this summer, though now that we have, this is more of like clip from a scene than a trailer for it. But doing the thing, still super worried about the continuity issues with this show versus the rest of the Alien franchise, but I have a little bit more faith that it will, if nothing else, be entertaining, even if they get the mythology wrong. So go check out the trailer. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Let's move on, though, to regular ass news. We now have word that Netflix has the rights to another show that they probably shouldn't, because now they're going to reboot Little House on the Prairie. That's right. Little House on the Prairie is going to get a reboot because Netflix just refuses to let sleeping dogs lie. If it was popular before, it's gonna make us money now, right? I mean, if you just streamed the original series, I bet that would make you just enough. You just promote that. Like, I don't know. But they have the rights to Little House on the Prairie, and they fully intend on using it. That's kind of all we know right now. No one has been attached to the project just yet, but they have made it known that they're going to be doing a reboot for Little House on the Prairie. Oh man, if they make this like a Yellowstone ripoff show, like what an absolute waste of a potentially interesting thing. Anyway, from there we have American Dad in the news. Season 20, that makes me feel super old, but season 20 is going to be back over on Fox. After spending 11 years on TBS, it is going to get revived on Fox. It's just continuing the story that's been going on the show. It's just half of its lifespan has now been spent on TBS and not Fox, which also makes the second show that Seth MacFarlane has made that has been canceled and then revived on the Fox network, which is a weird distinguishment. So yeah, there's that. That's what we got for regular ass news. Let's talk about our suggestion this week. We're getting ready for new season of Black Mirror, so you better re-up yourself on the previous seasons of Black Mirror. The first 3 seasons are only about 3 episodes long. I would say if you've never seen an episode of Black Mirror before, ever, start with season 1, episode 2. If you start with episode 1, that is very not indicative of anything else that happens in this series. Not that really it's anthological in nature, meaning each episode stands on its own for the most part. There are a couple of sequel episodes which are getting in the new season, so that's another reason to re-up your knowledge of Black Mirror, but USS Callisto being a very specific example. But some of the tech is really what follows through from episode to episode. No storylines, aside from, again, a couple of exceptions. No storylines continue from episode to episode. But if you judge the entire series based on that first episode, you've made a horrible mistake. That first episode is a big outlier. I think was meant to weed out the weak. So watch season 1 starting with episode 2 and then go back to episode 1 once you've finished, because it's only, like I said, like 3 episodes or so in season 1, and then continue on from there, because some fantastic X-Files meets the Twilight Zone awesomeness that I can't even put into proper words right now. It's up on Netflix. Go watch Black Mirror. That's your suggestion for the week. Okay, 1 second. Let's hold up just for a minute and take a minute before we get any deeper into the news and thank the people that help me get through these deep dives into the news, and that's W.GG. And I mean that on 2 different levels. The deep dives, they help me get through it because they are a channel partner, and also because of the product that they sell. It's an energy drink. All right, look, I know that what dedication takes, right? We all do. Whether you're mainlining 12 episodes of an anime and you're trying to get it done overnight, you're just grinding through another Elden Ring boss battle, you gotta get your HP up before you can do it, meticulously painting some miniatures because you have another tabletop session due tomorrow with all of your buddies, or even just trying to keep track of 40 years of comic book continuity. Focus is key. And then also, let's be honest, usually standard caffeine delivery systems are less than adequate, or they just kind of leave you feeling jittery and you get really worn out when they wear off because they have too much sugar. And that's where W comes in. This is not your average everyday gas station energy sludge. W is formulated for clean, sustained energy and focus so that you don't get the sugar crash afterwards and you don't feel jittery while it's still in your system. Think of it as like overclocking your brain, but like with super tasty flavors. It's loaded up with some vitamins and nootropics to help you really zero in on whatever your nerdy focus needs to be on at the moment, whatever you're dedicating your nerdiness to, what you're pursuit is, whatever you've given your precious time to, that's where this comes in handy. I've personally been seriously leaning on the Push and Punch and the Calio Cream. Those are my two favorite. Push and Punch actually just got a redesigned flavor, so I'm super excited to try that one out. But if that's not your style necessarily, they have a new flavor called Tiger's Blood, which is strawberry watermelon, which I'm also super excited to try out, so I don't know which one I'm gonna get next. But either way, those are the ones that I'm excited about. And they help, you know, when I've got a long editing session for videos on this channel, which is basically every week because we don't do short videos. And let me be honest with you nerds, it makes legitimate difference. So if you want to fuel your own passions, you need to stay sharp during an all-night gaming marathon, or you just need an extra edge to finally finish your cosplay build, do yourself a favor and go check out dubby.gg. Again, that is dubby.gg. That is the website, dubby.gg. When you go over there, you can toss in my discount code in the checkout. It is generally nerdy to snag yourself 10% off of your next tub. Or if you don't look for the caffeine, if you're not trying to get the energy or the caffeine edge or anything like that, they also do hydration drinks. So that's something to consider as well. So again, dubby.gg, code generally nerdy. Seriously nerds, thank you very much for your support here on the channel doing this. You get a discount, Dubby gets to sell product, and I get a little bit of a kickback. So it's a win-win-win on all fronts. Support your focus, ditch the sugar crash, and let's get back to the video. And then movie news, there are some really kind of seismic shifts, some big announcements going on that are going to change things and also filling in a lot of the details. And actually, this is an active development section. There is something that was still breaking news as I just kind of had to pull the plug and decide to film this week's episode. So very likely by the time this goes up, there will be more information. We're gonna get to that though, we're gonna get to that. Second, we have The Mummy is Rising Again. This time it seems it's going to be a legitimate horror option from the Evil Dead Rise director Lee Cronin for Blumhouse. We're gonna get there. And then the third big one is kind of a bummer for Street Fighter fans because yeah, there's been some roadblocks. That is all happening. There is some more blockbuster stories going on in the movie section, so let's go check them out. Follow-ups and corrections in movies is basically 90% of the section. We have no regular as news, but let's start with follow-ups. First up, The Batman Part 2 is no longer on the release slate for Warner Brothers. That's not to say that it's been canceled though. That is also not to say that the actual movie that they were working on has been shelved to any degree. Really all this is they're renaming the movie because there is still, and it's now listed as Untitled Batman Sequel and not The Batman 2 because apparently The Batman 2 was just a placeholder, which makes sense. So nothing has really changed. I don't even think the date changed at all, but people are reading way too far into this. This is nothing significant. This is just business as usual. We're to the point now where they need to give it a proper title, and so they gave it a different temporary title because that way we know it's a temporary title, right? So whatever, moving on. Street Fighter. Street Fighter is the other really big follow-up this week. Street Fighter, the new movie, Sony and Legendary Pictures teaming up to bring us something eventually, maybe, because it has just been pulled. This one has legitimately been pulled from the release slate. It was originally set for March 20th of next year, so approximately a year from now exactly. But it's on some sort of indefinite delay. No details are known as to what exactly that indefinite delay are. I feel like if we can strike the right chord with this one, it's going to do incredibly well. So I can't imagine it's going to stay in this state of limbo, but probably get moved back would make a little bit of sense because Sony's trying to reshuffle their corporate structure as well, what with the failures of all of their Marvel adjacent movies anyway. So let's not hold our breaths though. It very well could just be canceled and they're just going through the motions at this point, or just gets pushed back. As we get information, I will follow up and you will come back to the show for that information. Next up, we have The Mummy. We have a casting announcement. Jack Raynor, who you'll recognize from The Peripheral and Midsummer. He has been cast, but no word as to specifically who he's been cast as, what part he's playing. So there's been speculation that he could be playing the Mummy. I don't feel like that's accurate. I feel like more probable is they're going to get an established name, somebody a little bit more established, I guess, to play the Mummy, since it's going to be, I don't know, that's just the read I get off of it. I can't necessarily put it into words. But Jack Raynor, being a fairly young actor in Hollywood right now, I think makes sense that he would probably be put into a lead role akin to, though not the same as, because it's going to be a very different movie, but akin to the Brendan Fraser role from the Mummy from the 90s. Also of note here is director Lee Cronin, who, like we said at the top, oh god, what did he direct? Where did it go? Movies. Lee Cronin. Evil Dead Rise. Good lord. I knew that. But Lee Cronin has said that this is going to be a legitimate horror movie. It's going to be different than any Mummy that we've seen before. I think there's a direct quote in here from him. No, it was a paraphrase. Different, unlike anything we've ever seen, and very frightening is the paraphrase. So yeah, super excited for that because we know that he's got the chops to do such things. Also very interested to see what Jack Raynor can bring to the movie, assuming he is some sort of lead. And that's what we got for that one. Let's move on. The next one is the currently developing piece. And then there's an adjacent piece to it as well. But developing right now, as I'm filming this, they are still announcing, because we'll get into that, Avengers. So the Avengers Doomsday cast is actively being announced right now. The live stream up on the Marvel channel on YouTube has been going for a couple hours at this point because they're revealing the actors one person at a time every 12 minutes approximately. The list, as I stopped taking the notes and came upstairs to film, the list is as follows for returning actors. We have Chris Hemsworth, Vanessa Kirby, Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan, Letitia Wright, Paul Rudd, Wyatt Russell, Tanak Huerta Meja, Ibn Mas Bacharach, Simu Liu, Kelsey Grammer, Lewis Pullman, Joseph Quinn, and Winston Duke. As I said, there are very likely many more that have been announced since I started filming, as I've been filming for much longer than 24 minutes. But none of these are really a big question mark. Like, we kind of already... Kelsey Grammer, I think, is one of the bigger question marks. So the fact that he's being listed is super interesting. But right as it stands, like, we don't have Chris Evans on here would be a huge one. We don't have Scarlett Johansson. We know she's probably not coming back anyway. We don't have, honestly, anyone from except for Sebastian Stan. We don't have anyone from the Thunderbolts movie. Like, there's still a lot of big question marks for characters who might be returning. We don't have the Hulk on here. I'm gonna brain fart his name because I don't care. Yeah, just it's been coming very, very slowly through their YouTube channel, and emphasis on very slow, and nothing really majorly developing at this moment. Again, the Kelsey Grammer one, while it is it was a bit of a question mark because people wrote his cameo off as just a cameo, this probably is also just a cameo, just saying. The other MCU thing that we have here, though, is Elizabeth Olsen. Elizabeth Olsen has said in kind of no uncertain terms, though I would say there's very likely still a possibility that she's more bluster than I think she's letting on, but she has said in no real uncertain terms that she is not going to be returning to the role of the Scarlet Witch. She is actually not going to be returning to the MCU because of artistic reasons. She wants to be an artist. When she signed on to the MCU, she didn't realize how much of her life it was going to take over. I'm paraphrasing, but she said something like this in the interview. She didn't realize how much of her life it was going to take over, and she wants to do things for the art of acting and not just crank out a movie every year because that's what Marvel wants, which is commendable to a large degree, honestly. So yeah, I can definitely get behind that. That, though, is what we have for our follow-ups and corrections. Let's get into trailers. We should have talked about this oh no, the reason we didn't talk about this last week is because it released as I was editing last week's episode. But the Toxic Avenger trailer for the new Toxic Avenger movie is out, and you can go watch it, and it's hilarious, and again, feels like they understand what the hell they're doing. Next up is a new Shudder original horror movie called Clown in a Cornfield. The reason this one is a little bit more notable than the rest of the Shudder original schlock is it's from the director of Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, which is one of the best horror comedies of the last like 20 years. Like, it's legitimately a good movie. So yeah, that's noteworthy in and of itself. Release date for this one, May 9th, over on Shudder. Go watch the trailer. Doesn't really look like this one's gonna be a comedy, but it is dealing with a few clowns. Like, it looks like multiple clowns. Like, go watch the trailer and tell me I'm wrong, but like, it looks like there's at least 2, possibly even 3 different clowns in the trailer. So moving right along though with trailers, we have Final Destination Bloodlines has given us another trailer. The release date on this one is May 16th. Little bit of a worry on this one. We talked previously about how they're reviving, going back to their roots, a lot more of the gritty, like extreme kind of torture porn kills that we got in the first 2 or 3 movies that have been largely absent, and they've been very neutered movies because just the talent behind making these movies of late has not been very good. But we talked about when they did the teaser trailer a few weeks ago now, how it looks like they are legitimately returning to form. This trailer casts a little bit of doubt on that, and also potentially gives us about half of the kills in the trailer. So kind of be warned, there is some blood. It's not exactly a red band trailer, but I think it is still technically a red band trailer, if you understand what I'm saying. It still looks better than like the last 4 or so movies in the franchise, so that at least is still going for it, but otherwise, I don't know. It's a little, I don't think so. And then our last trailer for the episode is a new movie called Screamboat. If you remember a few months ago, I think it was January, the rights to Mickey Mouse, the original Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse, became public domain, which means you can use Steamboat Willie version of Mickey or some sort of variation thereof to make whatever you want. You can't use modern Mickey Mouse. There's a lot of delineation between that version of Mickey and modern Mickey. It's really easy to find if you're interested. It's irrelevant to our story though. A Screamboat is a horror movie that is going to be produced by the same people that produced the 2nd and 3rd Terrifier movies. This is a prime example of just because you can doesn't mean you should. This trailer, although to their credit, it very well could be bad on purpose, like so bad it's good kind of bad on purpose. That's what they're going for, at least. The setup is it's a cruise ship, or not even a cruise ship. It's like a party barge kind of thing, like those casinos on the lake kind of situation. And this evil mouse takes over and starts killing people, and you have like a bachelorette party that's these 7, I believe, different women who are the 7 main princesses from the Disney universe. They're kind of the version of them. The setup for this looks absolutely ridiculous. I really hope that if that's the way they're intending to go, that they really find the right tone to make that work, because that could be hilarious. Judging by the trailer though, I don't think they're gonna find the right tone to make that work. So yeah, that's kind of what we got. That's everything for trailers. Let's talk about our suggestion for the week. This is kind of an older suggestion and still absolutely worth it, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Older in modern terms of older, not like older in legitimate terms of older. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Forget everything you know about animation. Spider-Verse blew the doors off its revolutionary style that literally looks like a comic book come to life. Beyond the dazzling aesthetics, which they are absolutely dazzling, it's got tremendous heart, introduces Miles Morales perfectly, and juggles multiple spider people with incredible flair and humor. This is absolutely worth a watch. It is a moving work of art. I just think this is something that should probably be on everybody's watch list on your yearly rotation. You watch it once a year because it's that good. So that's your suggestion for the week. Go watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It is currently streaming for purchase, only because the rights to this movie are a little bit of a mess, but it is for purchase or rent up on Apple TV Plus or on Amazon Prime. So there you go. Okay, 1 second, let's hold up just for a minute. and take a minute before we get any deeper into the news and thank the people that help me get through these deep dives into the news, and that's W.GG. And I mean that on two different levels. The deep dives, they help me get through it because they are a channel partner, and also because of the product that they sell. It's an energy drink. All right, look, I know that what dedication takes, right? We all do. Whether you're mainlining 12 episodes of an anime and you're trying to get it done overnight, you're just grinding through another Elden Ring boss battle, you gotta get your HP up before you can do it, meticulously painting some miniatures because you have another tabletop session due tomorrow with all of your buddies, or even just trying to keep track of 40 years of comic book continuity. Focus is key. And then also, let's be honest, usually standard caffeine delivery systems are less than adequate, or they just kind of leave you feeling jittery and you get really worn out when they wear off because they have too much sugar. And that's where W comes in. This is not your average everyday gas station energy sludge. W is formulated for clean, sustained energy and focus so that you don't get the sugar crash afterwards and you don't feel jittery while it's still in your system. Think of it as like overclocking your brain, but like with super tasty flavors. It's loaded up with some vitamins and nootropics to help you really zero in on whatever your nerdy focus needs to be on at the moment, whatever you're dedicating your nerdiness to, what your pursuit is, whatever you've given your precious time to, that's where this comes in handy. I've personally been seriously leaning on the Push and Punch and the Calio Cream. Those are my two favorite. Push and Punch actually just got a redesigned flavor, so I'm super excited to try that one out. But if that's not your style necessarily, they have a new flavor called Tiger's Blood, which is strawberry watermelon, which I'm also super excited to try out, so I don't know which one I'm gonna get next. But either way, those are the ones that I'm excited about. And they help, when I've got a long editing session for videos on this channel, which is basically every week because we don't do short videos. And let me be honest with you nerds, it makes legitimate difference. So if you want to fuel your own passions, you need to stay sharp during an all-night gaming marathon, or you just need an extra edge to finally finish your cosplay build, do yourself a favor and go check out Dubby.gg. Again, that is Dubby.gg. That is the website, Dubby.gg. When you go over there, you can toss in my discount code in the checkout. It is generally nerdy to snag yourself 10% off of your next tub. Or if you don't look for the caffeine, if you're not trying to get the energy or the caffeine edge or anything like that, they also do hydration drinks. So that's something to consider as well. So again, Dubby.gg, code generally nerdy. Seriously nerds, thank you very much for your support here on the channel doing this. You get a discount, Dubby gets to sell product, and I get a little bit of a kickback. So it's a win-win-win on all fronts. Support your focus, ditch the sugar crash, and let's get back to the video.
Maybe. It's classified.
And then rumor mill. You know the drill. None of this is confirmed, but damned if it isn't fun to talk about. We have kind of the three big tent poles here. We have Feige possibly losing faith in the Russo brothers. There's some stuff going on there. We have the live action Voltron movie potential casting, and then we have Nintendo rumors that honestly, hopefully by the time I'm done filming this, will be confirmed or denied, so we can talk about that on the social medias. Either way, those are just kind of the big things. There's a bit more going on in the rumor mill, a lot more whispers, a lot more back and forth, so a lot more things to consider. Let's go consider the whispers, shall we? And then we're getting straight into the meat and potatoes because we got no confirmations, refutations, we got no new sources for old rumors, just brand new rumors. So let's talk about the new rumors. First up, we have the Russos versus Feige. There is rumblings behind the scenes that Kevin Feige is losing his faith in the abilities of the Russo brothers because they haven't had a hit since Endgame. Think about that. And not only that, but their most recent movie, The Electric State, is like actively losing Netflix a lot of money. It was filmed for $350 million approximately, which you do the movie math makes that about $700 million as far as everything that Netflix sunk into the movie concerning advertisements and things as well. And it's, I think, right now somewhere, I mean, Netflix isn't exactly transparent with these numbers, but I think it's losing of the production cost, not just the promotion cost, but the production cost alone. It's losing like $100 million or something. So we're looking at about $600 million as it stands right now. The loose numbers, like, again, Netflix is super not transparent with their numbers, but yeah, so that's just kind of an example of how not great the Russos have done since they left Marvel. And now that they're coming back to Marvel, Feige is saying, yeah, I'm gonna have to stand over your shoulder on this one. Also, I think this is a factor in how and why they're doing, rather, the announcement for the actors that are going to be in the Russos movies, the Doomsday and the Secret Wars. Because if they can build hype, if they can tell us who's in the movie instead of trying to keep it a secret, then maybe it will do better. I think that, I mean, legitimately, if it hadn't been for this morning, I would have said a very different likelihood for this, just because I don't know that Feige necessarily cares about things outside of his world. Now, though, I see that I was probably wrong, so we're going to put this one at about 70% likely that Feige is standing over the Russos' shoulders and is being very, very heavy-handed with this. There's honestly really no way that we're going to be able to substantiate this rumor, so that one's just a fun number. Usually, I think we get pretty close. Let's go from there. Voltron is now in the rumors. Henry Cavill has been cast to play the lead. Obviously, we know this. Rita Ora, though, has apparently been cast alongside Henry Cavill. She is rumored to be playing Hagar the Witch in the Voltron series. I mean, this is in the trades at this point, so like, basically might as well be just confirmed, but since it's still technically a rumor, we'll say 85%, just because I don't know Rita Ora why they would specifically choose her, but whatever, it's pretty likely. Next up, Nintendo. This one I've kind of been waiting all episode to get to. Nintendo apparently is somehow leading people to think that there's going to be 2 Nintendo Directs over the next 2 weeks. So one either today or tomorrow as I'm filming this, or maybe Friday, I guess. But also, we already know that the Switch 2 Direct is going to be happening next week. So that would put a week apart. There's speculation because people seem to be just, yeah, this is happening. So there's the biggest element of speculation has more to do with what is going to be covered in the Nintendo Direct, rather than is there actually going to be 2 Nintendo Directs a week apart? Because that seems to be super unlikely. This one, again, gaming rumors usually are pretty spot on. I'm going to go a little bit higher than I think is comfortable, because I honestly don't think we're going to get to. I think somewhere some wires are getting mixed up, and we're actually just doing the build up for next week's Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. So we're going to say probably 65% for the Nintendo doing 2 Directs a week apart. It really feels wrong, but I mean, as many people are talking about it, it very well could be right. Next up, we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We've been talking a lot about horror this episode. I don't really fully understand why that's happening. I mean, I guess that would be the timeline. It would make sense. I get it, I guess. Timeline to make sure that things come out on Halloween. We'd start getting the news this early. That makes sense. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Glenn Powell, the actor who you saw in Twisters and a number of other things, he's also a producer. He wants to produce the next Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. As the rights are currently being passed around, this one seems to have some legs. Again, this one comes from the trades, so yeah, I'm gonna put this one at 90%, just because, like, he's a real dude. I feel like he would be able to come out and squash any sort of rumor if it were untrue. He has yet to do that, so that's super likely. Next, this one's kind of a big one. I don't know why I didn't necessarily put this one in any of the teases for the episode or for this specific section, but Harry Potter. We now have rumored casting for Hagrid in Harry Potter. Nick Frost is said to be in negotiations to play the half-giant in the Harry Potter universe. Nick Frost, if you don't know the name, you do know the face. He's Simon Pegg's buddy in basically all of those, the Shaun of the Dead, and he's in End of the World, and he's just that whole group of people that make those movies. I'm totally blanking the director's name because ADD, but Simon Pegg, you know him. This one's just so much fun. Like, I kind of want it to be true. We're gonna say 70% on that one too. It also is in the trades, but it's contract negotiations, so that leaves a lot of room for things to fall through. Next, we have, this is a really interesting gaming rumor. Metroid Prime 4 is now rumored to not be coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2. It is going to be coming out for the Nintendo Switch 1, but the 2 is fully back compat. If this is legitimate, then I would imagine there's going to be additional content you can unlock once you do play it on your Nintendo Switch 2. So this one, again, most of my gaming sources are pretty damn good. So we're gonna say 80% likely for Metroid Prime 4 not coming to Nintendo Switch 2. I think that's kind of a really cool move, even because they have a gigantic install base with the Switch 1. So why wouldn't they release it for all of those people and also the people who are going to be getting Switch 2s? That just makes good marketing sense. And then, like I said, there's going to be something you can unlock or something when you plug your Switch 1 game into your Switch 2 console. It just makes too much sense. Staying in gaming, we have a Killzone remaster being rumored to be happening. Seems to be in the cards. However, the source does go on to say that rebooting the franchise and getting new games in the Killzone franchise is unlikely. I think that is the thing that puts this up over halfway, the 50% likely. Because if you look at the environment of gaming right now, you look at the things that are getting released, remasters are kind of all the rage. I would imagine there's some sort of rights issue that is stopping them from being able to do it as well, but really they're only willing to invest into the remaster. I would imagine if the remaster does very well, exceedingly well, breaks free of all of their expectations, then yeah, we might see something going forward in the Killzone universe. But according to the rumor, we're stuck in remastering the first game. Again, I really feel like this is super likely considering the landscape of modern gaming, so we're gonna say 80% again. And then God of War. God of War, there is a spin-off series in the works from Santa Monica Studios that is the studio behind the actual series itself. The game is not going to be a remaster of the first God of War game like a lot of fans want it. It is going to be a separate storyline, a spin-off game that is being worked on right now. This one has me about half, there is so much here to unpack. It's the same studio that's doing the mainline games. However, it's not a mainline game, it's a spin-off game. That in and of itself seems a little weird. But also, we have the God of War, series in the works, so they're going to want to release something to coincide with that, so there's got to be something in the works. I think the thing that really is putting me at 50% on this one is the fact that it's not a remaster or it's not another mainline game that is in the works. It's a side quest game, it's a something else. That seems a little odd. So yeah, 50% there. That is what we have for our new rumors. Let's talk about the speculation for the week. We're speculating on Elizabeth Olsen and the MCU. So like she said, she's an artist. She wants to do something for the art of acting and not just because Disney says that it's the thing she has to do because she signed a contract. However, there is still a bit of an open-ended situation going on with Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch. So that leaves us into a couple of different territories. The one that I think is the most likely is Disney has all of the money in the world, and so they can say, all right, we appreciate that you don't want to come back for another series of movies. We appreciate that you don't want to come back to do another TV show. However, there are some storylines that we need to tie up. So we're going to bring you back for movie, and that is going to be your big farewell from the MCU. I think if the check is big enough, she's gonna do that. The other venue is they recast the Scarlet Witch. Not out of the question, especially since we are in the multiverse saga. I had another one in my head just now, but whatever. So yeah, those are the two most likely, I think. Or, that was the third one. Or there is legitimacy to the rumors that this is going to be a quasi reboot or a soft reboot of the MCU, the Doomsday and Secret Wars. And in the process of doing that reboot, whatever version of a reboot we're getting, that finishing the Scarlet Witch's story is unnecessary. At which that I could also foresee happening, but the one that seems the most likely is they just pay her a bunch of money to do one final movie that wraps everything up, and then yeah, that's what we got. So that's just my speculation, though. I would love to hear what you guys think is going to happen with the Scarlet Witch in the MCU going forward. Is Elizabeth Olsen going to come back ever? Is she done for good? Are we recasting? Is the character just going to be gone? What are your thoughts? Let me know down below. Housekeeping for this episode. Last week there was no That Just Happened, and I apologize, but these things do happen because it was a week. I mean, the proper episode was late. Part of that is because I was playing too much Mortal Kombat, I won't lie. But the other part of that is just because the week, there was so much going on in the week as far as outside of the YouTube channel that there just wasn't a That Just Happened. So this week's That Just Happened is going to be a double episode. And I mean, like, I've got a bunch of notes, like more notes than usual for an episode of That Just Happened. So yeah, that will be coming up, I promise. Also, the clips are still rolling forward. We are going to be, I think, 2 weeks off, not next week. Let's see if I can pull up my calendar. There is going to be some changes in the month of April going into May. No, the last week of April and the first week of May, we will have those 2 weeks where we won't do an episode at all. So I'll just be spacing out the clips a little bit more over on the Clips channel. So yeah, the last week of April, first week of May, no proper episode because that is just an insane period of time with family things, and we're not going to have the time. But we will return after that, and then also next week is probably going to be a little bit delayed. So that is our housekeeping to speak of. Thank you very much, nerds, for joining me. If you are falling behind in your nerd news and you want to catch up, there is a playlist, The Week in Nerdom, up on the YouTube channel. Rumble doesn't really do playlists. I don't fully understand why they don't, but as soon as they do, or as soon as I figure out how to do that, I'll do the same thing up there. So you can just put it on and start to get your news in order from most recent to oldest. And yeah, thank you for sticking around. Do all of the things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, whatever you got to do. Follow, what is it on Rumble? Whatever, smash the like button. I appreciate you, nerds. This has just been quite an episode. My brain is a little bit fried. Let's get the hell out of here. We'll see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.